This summer, Instacart presents famous summer flavors coming to your front door. Or pool. Or hotel.
Your grocery delivery has arrived, sir.
That was faster than room service.
No violins in the lobby.
Oh, seriously? Anyway, sit back, relax, and get delivery in as fast as 30 minutes. Starring your favorite snacks, drinks, and more. Download Instacart for free delivery on your first 3 orders. Rated H for hungry audiences. Offer valid for a limited time. Minimum $10 per order. Excludes restaurants. Additional terms and fees apply.
We acknowledge the traditional owners of country throughout Australia and recognise their continuing connection to land, waters and culture. We pay our respects to their elders past, present and emerging. Welcome to This Song Is Yours, a music podcast where we chat to a new guest each week, talk about their life and creative endeavours, and talk to them about some of the music they love. Our show works by chatting to our guests about music, their songwriting techniques, and occasionally getting them to make you a playlist of the songs they love. Welcome to episode 208. I'm your host, Simon Fink. Our guest today is Lila Drew. The LA-raised singer-songwriter composes beautifully intricate pop songs and today is releasing her debut record, which is entitled All the Places I Could Be. In today's episode, we're speaking with Lila about playing music from an early age, juggling college and her career, and how self-discovery factors into her songwriting. Here we go. Our guest today is an English-born, LA-raised musician and artist. Currently studying at Yale, the pop singer and songwriter releases her debut record today, which is entitled All the Places I Could Be. Please welcome to This Song Is Yours, Lila Drew. Hello, how are we?
Hi, I'm good. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. Where are you joining us from today, Lila?
I'm joining from my suite mate's room. I go to college in New Haven, Connecticut. Yeah.
Lovely. I did
and
read...
she very kindly has a... Oh, sorry. I'm just saying she kindly has a much quieter and, room by herself. So using that.
Look, I can very much appreciate that. I was going to get to your studies a little bit later in the discussion. I know that you are currently at Yale, and I do want to talk about that a little bit. But to begin with, just for people who are listening, we are here today to talk about your brand new debut record, All the Places I Could Be, which is out as of today. Congratulations, firstly.
Thank you so much. Yeah, it's so very wild. Very, very wild.
Well, that's what I was going to ask. How are you feeling? I know that some of these songs have been coming out for the last year or so. It is the debut record. How I guess, are there nerves? Are you excited? What's going through your mind at this time?
Yeah, I think a lot of my friends have been asking me this question, as you can imagine. And I think that generally, and I'm not trying to be a downer, I'm very, very, very excited. But I do think for me, nervousness and anxiety is a much more powerful emotion than excitement. So I'm experiencing a lot of, I think really it's so surreal. And I mean, anyone who knows me would understand. I'm so sorry. I live on a very loud street. And we have crazy, motorcycle situations here. I'm on the 3rd floor with all the windows closed. Anyway, anyone who knows me knows that I'm unbelievably obsessed with albums. It's the only way that I consume music. It's the only way I've ever consumed music. I'm really not a playlist girl. I just listen to albums from beginning to end, and that's sort of always how I've consumed music. And I'm also such a massive, massive, massive fan of music before anything else. So it's just crazy to be putting out a project that I feel like is realized from beginning to end, and that is so intentional, and that I spent so long working on with so many people. And it's crazy. It's also just crazy. I wrote it between the ages of 18 and 21. I'm 22 now. So talk about documenting the literal most important years of my life. Not of my life, but of my sort of life thus far.
Of course.
So it's just crazy. It's crazy, and it's very personal. And that makes me nervous, but I hope people like it. And it's really exciting, hearing that people like it. And it was exciting hearing people, talk about it before it came out. So it's all just crazy. Yeah.
Of course. Well, very quickly, just to address what you said at the top, I feel like you wouldn't be a true artist if there was nerves and anxiety overriding the excitement. I think that is the sign of a true musician.
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah. But it is exciting. This is a beautiful collection of songs. I can very much appreciate an artist in terms of loving an album and not the playlist. I wanted to touch on what you just mentioned at the end, that the fact that this was kind of a snapshot or a time capsule of a very formative time in your life. Those are very important years, and you've now got this record which is almost documenting that. How did you find, I guess, songwriting through that time and working out what was going to work as in terms of like the content of a song and whether it was something that you think would still be resonant with you even 6 months or 12 months down the track?
Yeah, that's a really interesting way to put it, because I think that's exactly how I was thinking about it. Like that was the question I was asking myself in the process of writing this record. And I think number one, I was trying my hardest, above everything else, to like be honest to myself and to like the, place I was in mentally, physically in my life at that point in time. And I wrote most of it between leaving high school. I took some time off before coming to college and then like being in college. And it was a really like interesting sort of gray area in terms of where I was at in my life. And a lot of the record is really about, feeling like I don't have stories that are worth telling, and so much of the process was me trying to figure out what was worth saying and what was not. And most of what like was original to me, I really felt like was not worth saying. And I think that's partially because I just really felt like I had been, in a studio for the past 5 years at that point. And that I really had no real lived experiences out of like my mind. And I'm a very like cerebral person. And I felt like I was just like living in my head for like many, many years. And I remember talking to Sachi DeSerafino, who produced a lot of this album. And he's one of my best friends sort of through that process. And he was like, Lila, you need to go do things and like make mistakes and go like get drunk at like, not that I was 18, but no need to get into that. But like, he was like, you need to go do things that scare you and like go do things that you're afraid of. And I really felt like I've been living within myself for so long and didn't feel like any of my experiences were sort of, I don't know, either traumatic enough or out of the ordinary enough to write about. So the whole process ended up, one, becoming about me talking about that. And, it ended up being this sort of process about how to explain emotions through storytelling, which was really interesting. And I don't think I'm writing like that as much at this current moment as I was when I was writing the record. And I was really interested in like personification of my own emotions and, what does this emotion look like, sound like, all of the things. And I don't know, a lot of it is just about fear and about the sort of cyclical nature of being a person who thinks the same way, throughout most of their life, and about growing up and, trying to really be honest to my experiences and not, write anything that was overly embellished or sort of romanticized or fantasized. I don't know if that answers your question, but I think that's the place from which I was writing it. And now, a few years down the line, especially from when I started working on the record or writing the record, I really do feel like I've lived a lot more. And I'm 22, like I've barely lived at all. But I do feel like I've lived a lot more and have a way better grasp on like how to translate my experiences into, writing. But I also think this first record gave me so much confidence to tell myself like, yeah, you're like 10 minutes of weird experience with this person is like worth you documenting. And yeah, I think like I needed to write this record that was really just about, me looking at myself in an honest way.
I think that you've done very well in doing that. I feel that the record is beautiful snapshots of kind of these moments of your life from an outsider's perspective. Obviously, we can't understand fully, but one thing I did love about some of the album as well was that some of the tracks had certain sonics that were, I believe that they were like demos or like outtakes that were kind of left in that I feel made the tracks feel a little bit more homely, a little bit more well-worn, if that makes sense, a little bit more familiar.
Yeah.
Was that what you were trying to kind of get across with including little bits and pieces like that?
Yeah. To be honest, I hadn't had a lot of those elements were not in the record when I brought it to be mixed. And Tom Elmhurst, who's incredible, and mixed this record, and it was such a joy and honor to work with him. And I was so shocked that he liked the album. I'm still shocked that he liked the album. But he was the one, he was like, I think you need some things in between some of these songs to let people, into your world a little bit more. And something that I was thinking about while making a lot of the record, and not to sound like totally pretentious, not to sound like an asshole, but I loved this idea. It's a film technique from like sort of like Soviet era filmmaking of like exposing the medium like by which the film or whatever in that case is being made with through the actual film. So these films would have like scenes of the film and then scenes of people on the cutting room floor cutting up film strips and pasting them together and editing it, and that would be sort of within the film, and you'd get to see that process and expose the ways in which the film was made via the film. And I thought that was so interesting in the context of music. And I talk about this a lot, but I think this record in a lot of ways is about, exploration and aspiration, and how do those things coexist? Do they coexist? Do they not? I think they're just like the two most sort of like important, buckets of growing up. And sort of the emotions that go along with that. And I wanted people to get that sort of sense of exploration, and that we were exploring, me and all the people I worked with on the record, that we were exploring what these songs meant via making the songs, and that, the ideas weren't realized when we started. They were only realized when we finished. And often they weren't realized when we finished. And I think that, I really loved when Tom had brought that up about, having these little bits and pieces and interludes, or lack of a better word, whatever you want to call it, between the songs, because I felt like it really amplified what we were trying to do within the songs, which was to sort of leave in all of those discrepancies and all of the mistakes and all of the breaths and all of the things that you wouldn't do in a typical pop production. And that was so fun and so exciting. And I think that is sort of where a lot of the humor and stuff in the record comes in. And I know I'm talking all serious and stuff, but there is so much humor in the record, and I don't think I'm like such a serious person in my life. So that was a really important part of it. And, trying to make people feel like we're right there, and like we're in the room next door making the record was sort of the goal.
Well, I think that you achieved that goal very well. I feel that the record, as I mentioned, it does feel kind of like lived in, well-worn. And even now speaking with you, I can see that I think that was very intentional. You do seem like you're very articulate and very particular with your choice of words, which I think even now makes me rethink the way that I listen to the record, and I guess wanting to go back and kind of re-listen to certain tracks, and I guess the intentional choices made. I was wondering if you'd allow me to be a little bit selfish.
Yeah, please.
And ask about my favorite track on the record. I really loved the track Lucky. I thought it was a beautiful track. And I was wondering whether you'd be able to give us a little bit of a peek behind the creative process or where that song came from.
Yeah, that's so funny because I feel like that's never a track that people pick out, and I'm so happy that you like that one. I really like that song. Yeah, that song is so interesting. I've been working with Sachi, who I mentioned previously, I think we were locked in a room together for about 5 weeks.
I have a secret. I wore the wrong foundation for years. Then I discovered Il Makiage. Their AI-powered quiz makes it so easy to find a perfect match, customized for your unique skin tone, undertone, and coverage needs. With 600,000 5-star reviews and 50 shades of flawless natural coverage, this foundation is going viral for a reason. And with Try Before You Buy, you can try your full size at home for 14 days. Take the quiz at ilmakiage.com/quiz. That's ILMAKIAGE.com/quiz.
My dad works in B2B marketing. He came by my school for career day and said he was a big ROAS man. Then he told everyone how much he loved calculating his return on ad spend. My friends still laugh at me to this day.
Not everyone gets B2B, but with LinkedIn, you'll be able to reach people who do. Get a $100 credit on your next ad campaign. Go to linkedin.com/results to claim your credit. That's linkedin.com/results. Terms and conditions apply. LinkedIn, the place to be, to be.
And we had only met like twice before we decided to do that, which was probably a mistake. And Sachi and I really have like such a familial, like sort of sibling relationship. And we wanted to absolutely murder each other by the end. Anyway, but we had made at that point, 2023, Used To, and a few others, but I can't remember. And I remember we were sitting and listening to sort of all the songs as they stood at the time, which were, sounded totally different than they do now. And Sachi and I are both like, we need a song that feels a little more organic. I hate that word so much, but a little more organic, a little more natural, a little slower, a little more intimate. And we wrote Lucky together. And I think it was the first song that we'd really, really written together rather than, him doing some of the like piano and me doing all the lyric and the melody. And it was really collaborative. But strangely, Lucky is like the most personal song on the album by miles, which is so interesting because I feel like people would probably think it was like Moments, which is the last track, or Lila's Theme, which was the last single, or the previous single from the record before it came out. And yeah, long story short, my parents went before I was born, like called me Lucky, like when I was in the womb. And it was the song sort of became this like letter to myself as a kid. And I think I talked about this earlier. I was really, really interested in the idea of predictability. A lot of the album is about that. Crystal Ball probably being like, the one most about it. Like you're looking in the crystal ball, it's pretty, straightforward there. But Lucky was sort of, this meditation on predictability as well. And the fact that I was really fearful that the ways in which I sort of behave will continue to be the ways that I'll behave forever. And that like, as much as I can tell myself to change, that like, I will never actually change. And I don't know if that's true or not, but that's certainly how I was feeling at the time. And I felt like I wasn't doing a lot of things that would be good for me out of fear and out of anxiety, which is such a theme in my life and on the record. And Lucky sort of just took on a life of its own, but it's really a super diaristic song. It's like a letter from top to bottom. Yeah, and it's so cute. Sachi's girlfriend is whistling on it. She has like, I don't know if you heard that like really high pitched sound in the choruses. That's a whistle. She's unreal. She sounds like a bird, which I love. And yeah, it was also one of the first songs where we really played. That song really guided the production of a lot of the rest of the record. We played around a lot with sort of ambient sounds for the first time. And that influenced so many of the other songs. And I ended up, revising Crystal Ball entirely, Lila's theme, Moments, What Are You Doing, all were like completely revised from a production perspective after we made Lucky. Yeah. So I'm happy you asked about that song. It's one that is really close to home for me.
Well, I'm very, very appreciative that you shared that with us. So thank you. I do. Yeah. Thank you for letting us in.
Yeah, sure.
You mentioned your parents before. I think if I've done my research correctly, you've been songwriting since you were around 10. Do you remember what originally drew you to songwriting and the art of crafting a song?
Yeah, this is so ridiculous. I really like to sing a lot as a kid, which, whatever. I did choir and stuff. Like I loved to sing as like a really young kid. And I just thought that singers wrote songs. That was what drew me to songwriting. I just thought all singers wrote songs. And so I was like, okay, I like to sing. I'm going to write songs. And it just so happened that when I was I think at this point I'm probably 8. And so when I'm 8, it's like the dawn of GarageBand, 2008. And like GarageBand is like everything, it's brand new. And they had computers in my elementary school for the first time. And I was able to like learn how to use GarageBand on my school computers. Like I'd go into like the computer lab and do GarageBand. And I'd write songs and record them and burn them onto CDs and like decorate the CDs with color Sharpie and give them to my parents. Like that's what I was doing. But yeah, it really just opened up a huge, whole world for me. When I was, understood that like there was a program that I could make my own songs on. And I always have loved to write, not just songs. I love writing poetry. I write a lot of creative nonfiction prose as well. So writing was always a huge part of my life. I don't really think it was such a conscious choice with songwriting. I was so young. Like, I don't think I really was like, this is my calling or like, this is what I need to do. I just don't think I was thinking that deeply about it. I think I was more like, this is really fun. And then it took on sort of a life of its own, obviously. But yeah, it was really, I love music more than anything in the world. And I know that's so cliche. And like, of course I love music more than anything. I'm a musician. But I really I'm a music listener first and foremost. Yeah. And so that love of music, and I just grew up with so much music around, just sort of, bred this larger passion, I guess, for actually making music of my own.
Of course. I don't think you're alone in that thought. I think a number of us have been disillusioned to think that all singers wrote their own songs, and then at a certain age in your teenage years, that glass is broken and you realise it might not be the case. Mm-hmm. Before, as we mentioned, you are currently studying at Yale. Are you studying music? And I guess, do people know that your, I want to say side job is
my side hustle is school.
Yeah.
Yeah, my side hustle is school.
Do they understand that you are a musician first and foremost?
At school?
Yes, sorry, yeah.
No. No, not at all. Not at all. Oh my God. People are very serious here in a lot of ways. And no, I've had to explain to my professors pretty much every semester that I've been here. I'm now, I'm in my 3rd year here. But yeah, I've had to explain every semester because there will be a time when I have to leave for a certain period of time. And, you know, we'll have to explain, like, this is what I do outside of school. And it's been met with different reactions, some positive, some less positive. But it is crazy to be at school and doing this, especially with my album coming out. To be honest, like, my team would hate to hear this. I've had so much homework this week. Like, it's Thursday, I've had a ton of homework this week. And, you know, those things also have deadlines, and I'm trying to take off some pressure, you know, off myself to, like, be performing so well in school, because it's really so impossible to perform at a high level in school and also, you know, be putting out my first album and working on other music and, you know, all the things that come with putting out a record. But I'm really lucky in the sense that, you know, I'm able to do something that I absolutely love at this stage in my life, and to be doing it, you know, at this level. And that's, you know, that's an opportunity that, like, I'd be an idiot to take school more seriously than that.
Look, I can very much appreciate that, and very much love the fact that you are both focused on your debut album coming out and homework. I think that is very relatable. I think that there's a number of people who would, I'm curious, and obviously once your studies are done and you're able to tour, it does seem like it's a bit of an obvious question, but can we expect to see you visiting us down here in Australia at any point to tour?
Oh my God, I would love that so much. I hope so. It's really in the works at the moment. And I did a small tour over the summer in Europe that was absolutely incredible and literally had the time of my life. And I love playing live, and it's such an important part of this whole process. And so much of this record was written to be played live. And then the pandemic sort of happened as we were making it, which feels like a lifetime ago now. But yeah, so much of it was really written to be played by people with instruments in their hands. So I'm hoping that that'll be part of the calculus, you know, very, very soon. It's tough because I'm in school, so I don't have all the time in the world to leave. But I would like to leave and tour. So yeah, that would be awesome.
Of course. Well, hopefully we'll see graduate Lila Drew here in Australia once you've finished with school.
Yeah, or drop out Lila Drew would be fun too.
Either way we get to see you, but we're hoping graduate, not drop out, but we'll get to see you.
My mom's going to hear this.
Lila, lastly, we would usually ask, I guess, what they're currently listening to, if there's anything at the moment that's on high rotation for yourself.
Yeah, I love the new Alex G album. I've been listening to that a lot. I'm a huge Alex G fan. And I'm going to shout out, I guess, someone who worked a lot on this record, Matt Hales, also known as Aqualung. He would hate me for saying it like that. But he is incredible. And he produced Bad Juice and Moments on this record and some of my earlier music, and I adore him so much. And he just put out a new album called Dead Letters. I think I'm gonna 100% check that's what it's called, because I'd be Dead Letters. New record that came out 2 weeks ago, and it's absolutely gorgeous. I've been listening to that every day. Yeah, those. And I'm seeing the 975 tonight in Connecticut with my friends. And they're my favorite band. So I'm very excited about that.
Well, we will put the link to Aqualung in the show notes, along with the link to your record.
Awesome.
Lila, thank you so much for coming onto the podcast. Congratulations on the album.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
And that's our show. A massive thank you to Lila Drew for her time. All the Places I Could Be is out now, and we've left links in the show notes if you'd like to stream the record. We also want to give a huge shout out to Liv at Positive Feedback for helping out with today's interview. If you like this show, please subscribe wherever you get your pods and stay up to date when new episodes are released. We release new shows each Wednesday and Friday morning, and we now have a Patreon, which you can find within the show notes of this episode. You can follow the playlist profile on Spotify, and you can follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. Until next week, cheers.
Acast powers the world's best podcasts. Here's a show that we recommend.
Are you ready for some hoops off?
Are you ready for some hoops off?
This is legitimately what you see people do right before they're going to fight. They take off their hoops, their earrings, because they don't want to get them ripped out of their ear, and they get ready for battle. Hey, I'm Liz.
And I'm Karen.
And you're listening to Hoops Off from Luminary.
On this show, we take our hoops off to bring you the spiciest, the saltiest takes on each week's games. We'll also be reading books by our favorite players, reviewing Shaq-sponsored products.
And of course, we'll be bringing the tea.
Should I prepare the hot water?
Oh, you better prepare the hot water. Please make sure to follow the show on your favorite podcast listening platform.
Acast helps creators launch, grow, and monetize their podcasts everywhere. Acast.com.